Welcome to another edition of the Hoop Scoop. I'm Jared Johnson. I'm joined by the mighty Joe Yeager. Well, your favorite, or one of your favorite topics for sure, near the top of the list, Red Raider basketball. Texas Tech off to a 5-1 start after getting a split in Brooklyn in the Legends Classic, and that's what you predicted in our rapid fire leading up to the game. So, as usual, Mighty Joe shows that he knows absolutely what he's talking about when it comes to Red Raider hoops. Again. Yeah, I sound like an apologist, but basketball and football are very, very different in terms of how, at least in terms of how I see a season. I think about in my Uncle Rico days and playing. Sometimes you just don't have it. The ball doesn't go your way, or the other team's hot. It's very different than football, where over the course, like a football game feels like a month of your life. A basketball game feels like a day. Yeah. It's just over like that. And I felt like the loss to St. Joe's could have been avoided. And it's definitely something that you criticize and you go over and like, what did we do wrong? And I think you learn the most about your team in that first half against St. Joe's than the 4 games leading up to it. And I think what they learned, and I was screaming for it in the game thread, run everything through JT Toppin. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean he has to take every shot, but give him a touch in the post, have the defense freak out because it's JT Toppin who had, I think, 24 and 18 in that game, something ridiculous. And then you can get your open threes instead of forcing open three or contested threes or guys like Kevin Overton. I like what he brings to the team, but he should not be shooting more than 5 times a game unless they're just like wide open corner threes. So those roles need to be defined. What this team is needs to be defined, and what they are is a team that have a lot of good athletes, a lot of good spot up open shooters, and you got absolute stud inside in JT Toppin, combined with the Darion Williams, who is pretty good in the post as well, and brings a lot of versatility to your team.
Yeah, I mean, inside out.
Yes.
That's pretty much the way to go.
Yes.
I remember Chris Beard used to say that all the time. I would ask him about something in press conferences. He would say, oh, well, the way to win in college basketball is to play inside out. Inside out. That's no secret. That's what people want to do. But you've got to have the personnel to do that.
Absolutely.
And Tech has that.
Tech does it big time.
JT Toppin is just he's too much for the vast majority of people to handle one-on-one.
Yeah.
If he keeps tearing people up inside, then eventually they start running people at him and helping down, which opens up opportunities for everybody else, as you mentioned. And certainly Tech has the shooters outside. So it definitely makes sense to do it that way. And you have that secondary post player in Darion Williams
who's
as well.
Dominant.
I mean, at 6'6".
He's so much bigger than he was last year.
He is, and he wasn't a shrimp last year.
No.
He's even
He's
bigger.
a tank, man.
Yeah,
kind of reminds me of Taj Brooks's
build
progression,
right.
From when he got on campus.
Right, and so you got 2 guys that can go down there, and with Darion Williams, I think they call him a guard, but I really consider him more of a forward at this point.
Yeah, me too.
Because of his post game, the way it's developed, but he has really almost point guard skills in terms of passing out of the post. And he's just, so, I mean, you've got a lot of pieces there. As we mentioned, everybody knows about the shooters that you can ring around the outside. All the makings are there for a really good offensive team. Now, it didn't materialize completely in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Because you scored, 77 in the first one and 79 in the second. It's good, but I think you can do better than that. And I think they will do better than that. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together, as you said, defining the roles, everybody syncing up and saying, okay, this is our identity, this is what we're going to do, and forcing people to stop it. And they're going to have a hard time doing that.
You know who Darion Williams reminds me of his game offensively is Ron Artest.
Oh, wow.
Ron Artest was like, I mean, yes, he was a head case and all that, but offensively, he was very underrated in terms of he was a great post-up player, so big, and he was very skilled.
Yeah.
He also was a really good passer. That was one of the most underrated things about him. Everybody's remember the Malice and the Palace and all that kind of stuff. And defensively, he was about as good as there was for a 3-4 stretch in the world. Darion Williams has a long way to go defensively to reach anything like that. But offensively, for their levels of play, that they kind of remind me. Just when you were talking about it, I was like, you know what, that's who he reminds me of. So that leads me to my next point, though. Defensively, Tech still has a long way to go. They're just on-the-ball defense is not good. Their help defense seems uncoordinated right now. When they get beat off the dribble, all the back screens up. Really, that was the first thing I learned really about this team, other than, they have shooters. JT Toppin really is a stud. Arkansas Pine Bluff showed you almost some of those Princeton cuts, those back doors, those back screens for them, and that they just kept getting wide open layups. Arkansas Pine Bluff against Tech, and we saw St. Joe's do some of that. Syracuse to a degree, but as good as these coaches are in the Big 12, that they're going to see that, and they're going to say, look, they could be gotten off the dribble, and then you kick out to open shooters and all. It's kind of like the inside out principle, except you're doing it more with your guards beating guys off the dribble, penetrating, and then the defense breaks down, freaks out, and you get great opportunities from it.
Yeah, that's right. So consequently, teams are shooting the three pretty well against Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Tech is fouling too much.
Yeah.
When you get guys coming in on penetration, then people get desperate and they hack. They're out of position. You're out of position, you're more likely to foul. You're trying to contest right at the hoop because they driven in there and penetrated. When you jump up with a guy, the ref is looking. There's a pretty good chance a foul is going to be called. And Tech is sending people to the line too much right now. So I mean, I've said this again and again over the years. Penetration is the worst thing for defense.
Yeah,
it's poison, man.
It is.
If you can't contain penetration at a reasonably good level, then you got issues, man.
Yeah.
So that's what Tech has got to figure out right now. I mean, you don't have the personnel defensively to be great.
Yeah.
I think you have the potential to be pretty good, but you're not there yet. I've mentioned in an article, I think Tech needs to look at working up his own defense as an antidote to some of this penetration. One good thing I will say, however, was Kevin Overton in the Syracuse game. Because that guard, J.J. Starling, was just killing Tech.
Yeah.
He had 15 points, 17 points at halftime, something like that. You had to do something. And it's clear that Coach McCaslin said, all right, Kevin, that's your guy in the second half. You deny him the ball. You do whatever you have to do to keep him from getting the ball and scoring. And for most of that second half, he shut him down. I mean, he went silent. Now, he picked up a bunch of fouls in the process, eventually fouled out. But he did the job. And it was at that time when you shut down Starling with Overton, you gained that lead. And you got up by 12 points. And that was enough to help you coast home for the victory. So, there's some hope there with Kevin Overton if he adopts the role of being the stopper on defense. That can help you out on defense an awful lot.
He should be a 3-and-D guy, not any kind of focal point on offense. And I know he probably doesn't want to hear that. But in order for the team ultimately to have the best chance of success, that's the role. And that's what happens in a season of basketball. That's why you see a team all of a sudden seemingly come out of nowhere where it's like they finally define their roles. Guys, especially now more than ever, get used to playing together, find that sweet spot, and then it's on. And this team has that potential. And one of the reasons it has that potential, and you brought it up, alluded to it, was the second half adjustments from McCaslin. This team is very well coached.
Right.
It's just my honest opinion on McCaslin. Excuse me. You see look at the game against St. Joe's. I know ultimately you lost, but you were down by 16 points in the last couple minutes of the first half. You cut it to 10. And then the second half, defensively, you had clearly made adjustments. And not only that, but the intensity was way up. You were way better defensively. And you had more of a game plan. Like Tech did a better job of adjusting from half to half. And really does a lot of the time. And the chess match in the Big 12 is going to be some of the more difficult that Tech will see no matter who they play all year. And that does get you ready for the tournament because that's what the tournament is. But I thought in both those games in Brooklyn, we saw that. The Overton, doing such a good job, and then also just the overall team defense against St. Joe's and kind of trying to stop that 3-point barrage you were facing from them in the first half.
Yeah, that's right. So if that holds true moving forward, Tech basically winning the halftime, with your coaching staff, then that's going to make you feel pretty good if a game is tied at halftime. Like, all right, Tech's going to be a second half team, and we should be able to get the win out of this thing. So, that's a very positive sign.
And not only did they make the defensive adjustments, but they also said, look, we're going, forget this chunking from deep. we're going to JT in the post, we're going to Darian in the post, and we're going to work off that. And that's why Tech was in the game, and really they should have won. Ironically, poor shot selection on the second to last possession by Darian Williams to kind of settle for that three. Yeah. He's one of your star players, so you kind of got to live with that. But if I'm a coach, I'm like, come on, man, we're killing him inside. JT was there on the block. And then he had a good look off more of what you want, and he just didn't make it. And that's basketball and life and all that. But I think my overall feeling coming out of Brooklyn is I still feel really good about this team. And you learned a lot about your team, and I think it's going to be interesting moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, as much as anything, you just wanted to learn about your team.
Yeah.
And you wanted to improve.
Yeah.
And I think you did. I mean, I think Tech is going to be, from this point on, and you're going to see it hopefully in the next game against Northern Colorado, this is just going to be a better team. I mean, those first 4 games that they played it didn't do you any good. I mean, really, you don't learn anything when you're playing a couple of SWAC teams and maybe a bottom feeder from the Southland Conference and some team from up in the mountains, man. I mean, that's just not going to do the job for you in terms of learning. So I think a part of the problem in the first half against St. Joe's was that they were a little bit shocked by the level of the step up in competition, man. You just weren't ready for it. Yeah. And it took you a while to get back on your feet and say, okay, well, this is where it's at. This is what it's like. And then once they adjusted to that level of competition, they started improving.
Right.
So, but now you're there. I mean, you've played this higher level of competition, won one of them, and you should be almost to Big 12 level before too long.
It's also a completely different stage. You play your first 4 games all in West Texas here at the USA. Now all of a sudden you're in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center, big time arena. I mean, it makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And you still could have, should have won in spite of St. Joe's shooting lights out from deep. So I feel really good going forward. But Monty Joe, as always, great stuff from you. Thank you. Thank you all for watching, and until next time.